do you think the US will ever get to 1 million Bitcoin if they tried to purchase that much?
Yeah, that's definitely a question mark. Because once they start signaling that they're buying,
Yeah.
I think it's going to be very hard to reach that target. Right, just
Yeah.
hitting that target is difficult. I think Saylor was able to get to his target 1% and beyond because he started in a bear market. Right, he started when the price
Yeah.
was low. Now the price is at 0.1. Bitcoin can easily 10x, and we've done
Yeah.
10, 17x before too. And with the nation states buying with unlimited bullets, they can really quickly bid this up very quickly. So the question is how fast they can move is one dimension of it. If they can go quickly, maybe there's a chance. But I think as soon as they start to buy in numbers, like serious buys, like buying 100,000 coins, reaching that 100,000 target, I think we're going to start to see Bitcoin shoot up very rapidly to maybe 5 million a coin.
Yeah, I have a feeling. I actually have a feeling that they might reach the 1 million. I really, because I thought Bitcoin would reach $1 million before the ETFs get to 1 million Bitcoin, because I thought people were they were diamond handed. They actually wanted to hold, but I think a lot of people don't quite understand what they own. Like I would say, probably out of the people who own Bitcoin, maybe maximum 10% understand it, right?
Yeah, I would say that's a fair assessment. But there's one thing that's different, which is if a nation state is buying in size,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of have to understand that you probably shouldn't sell it. So when Bitcoin starts to go really exponential, like it's going from 1 to 2 million to 3 million, then I think people are going to question, what exactly am I selling the Bitcoin for? Why am I selling it for the dollars that the government is spending to buy Bitcoin? And what am I going to do with the dollars? What is the interest rate on those dollars? Like how am I monetizing my dollars then? And at the same time, geopolitically, countries are moving away from the dollar. So maybe it's declining in usage in international trade. So there's a lot of dimensionality to this that I think people have to think about and consider. But they're definitely going to see it firsthand, and they'll have to deal with it on the spot when it hits. But I just think there is a point at which you can no longer be oblivious to what's happening, and you have to understand, like, okay, I'm going to sell Bitcoin to the government for $5 million, and what do I do with that now? Like, merchants are starting to price things in sats. So, did I make a bad trade or a good trade? I think they'll find out it's a bad trade.
Yeah. Yeah, always. I think whenever you sell Bitcoin for dollars, you're always going to feel at least a little bit stupid in the future. At least a little bit. You're always going to feel a little bit of pain just because of how the asset is designed, right? You can create more dollars out of thin air. You can keep printing more, keep printing more. You can't do that with Bitcoin.
Samson Mow, the illustrious Bitcoin advocate and CEO of JAN3, has sparked excitement with his recently shared Bitcoin-centered prognostications for the coming years. In what might appear as a visionary leap, this financial guru envisions Bitcoin not just retaining its top position, but catapulting to an astounding $1 million by 2025. Welcome back to Investocracy Crypto.
Do you think MicroStrategy is going to change this whole cycle that we have? You talk a lot about 0.1 Bitcoin, 0.1 million Bitcoin, $0.1 million per Bitcoin, 0.2 million, 1 million. Do you think MicroStrategy is what's going to lead to that massive Omega candle, the God candle?
I think so. My current theory is that the Omega candle is triggered by a gamma squeeze on MicroStrategy. It's just forcing everyone to buy more all the time and readjust all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think MicroStrategy's NAV premium above 1 is justified?
Well, that's a very common criticism, I think. People look at it and say MicroStrategy should be at 1. Anything over is an anomaly. But if you think about it, most stocks trade at a multiple of price to earnings, right? Like 20 is normal. I would say very normal. And then you have 30, even 40. So why would MicroStrategy be at 1 when they have the ability to take 0% loans effectively to buy Bitcoin? And their stock is kind of linked to Bitcoin right now. So if Bitcoin keeps going up, their stock will keep going up. So they can keep selling these converts that convert in the future at a premium. So they're kind of like monetizing Bitcoins and their own future gains, if you will. And I think that in and of itself warrants a multiple of at least like 5 to 10. And then if you look at what they can do with Bitcoin in the future, that's easily justifiable up to the 20, 30 range even, right? But I think 10 to 20 multiple is fair, given what they've accomplished and what they will keep on accomplishing over the next 5-10 year period. But I think there's a lot of criticisms out there right now that it's all going to fall apart, and there's like these in-depth analyses where they're breaking down all the problems that could happen, and what if Bitcoin goes down? And I think none of these things are looking at the entire picture holistically and from the perspective of hyper-Bitcoinization. So if you look at it from a very high level, MicroStrategy has already won for the next 1,000 years. They have 2% of the supply of Bitcoin already. And they might be able to get to 3, maybe 4%. And none of these models, none of these critics that are breaking it down are thinking in terms of fiat ending. So what happens if the dollar just ceases to exist in 10, 20 years? What does that mean exactly? That means everything is denominated in Bitcoin. So none of their models, none of their projections, none of their worst case scenarios are taking that into account. And I think that's the biggest fallacy here, that you have a global asset base that could easily be priced in the quadrillions, right? Like going back to the triangle. And let's just say we have dollar sat parity, or at least current day purchasing power parity of $1 with the Satoshi, the smallest unit of a Bitcoin, 100 millionth of a Bitcoin. Then the market cap of Bitcoin would be $2.1 quadrillion. And if MicroStrategy has 2% of that, then they're already valued at $42 trillion, right? And what if, again, the models are not factoring this in, but there's a lot of lost coins out there. So what if the real market cap is more like, I don't know, $84 trillion, right? Even $42 trillion is 10x bigger, more than 10x bigger than Apple right now. So that is pretty good in and of itself. But the real market cap of MicroStrategy could be something like 84 trillion, 100 trillion. We don't know yet. But given the fact that Bitcoin is finite, it is digitally scarce, they've kind of won already. And none of these analysts and critics have figured out that, this is a finite asset, and they have a huge chunk of this finite asset forever. And what can they do with it in 100 years, 200 years? I don't know. They can easily monetize that, right?
Speaking from a podium of anticipation, Mow captivated followers with his resolve that Bitcoin will hit the $1 million mark in just a few years. Delving deeper into Mow's bold projections, a pivotal focus is his expectation for 2025. It's not just about a meteoric Bitcoin surge. More nations will allegedly adopt Bitcoin strategies.
Do you think that they just think of Bitcoin as another asset? Maybe they don't understand it. They don't quite see where it's going. Maybe they don't see it as money.
Well, probably they don't. I mean, Microsoft had the vote, the board vote or shareholder vote, and it was like 0.55% voted yes to make Bitcoin a reserve asset. So I would say we're still very early, and it's just shocking to me that people don't really understand it yet. But they will. They'll understand it at 0.5 million or 1 million, I would say. That's kind of the market at which we start to demonetize gold. And it can happen actually very quickly too, especially with all the happenings in the US with the incoming Trump administration and their plans to create that strategic Bitcoin reserve. But again, going back to that triangle, you have MicroStrategy furiously trying to get that last bit of that triangle. And then now you have the US, maybe they're going to try to aim for 1 million coins, right? So it's a war for that little tiny piece of real estate just at the top of that triangle.
It's so important to understand that the amount of capital that can go into this is literally unlimited. Like there is no limit because dollars can be created out of thin air. So the way that people are looking at it is they're seeing that, I actually got a response from Craig Wright. I said at one point most people will ignore Bitcoin until $1 million or more, and he said to me, "Oh, Bitcoin can't reach $1 million." So that just shows you he has no idea what he's talking about.
Yeah, but why do we care what Craig Wright says?
That's exactly what it is, right? I mean, most people are like that. They're so confident. They think they know what Bitcoin is. They think they know where Bitcoin is going, but they don't even understand it. Like they don't get it.
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing that people need to consider is what if the current system that you grew up with, you're familiar with, is just gone one day? And
Yeah.
I think that's where we're headed. If you look at the macroeconomic environment, all signs point to some sort of systemic failure of the current system.
Another linchpin in Maw's utopian vision is the surge of MicroStrategy stock to $2,000 per share. Here's where Michael Saylor, the executive chairman, plays a vital role. With a quarterly Bitcoin yield of 47.8%, MicroStrategy has undeniably drawn eyes and aspirations alike, amassing a treasure trove of 120,600 Bitcoin, translating to a hefty $11.6 billion at recent rates. But before going any further, if you made it this far into the video, thank you. These videos take a lot of effort and time to make, so if you enjoyed them, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. This goes a long way in helping us grow. That said, back to the video.
Do you think it's possible that one Bitcoin could be worth 164 million US dollars by the next 8 years?
I would say theoretically yes, but practically no, because there's
No.
a point at which it just cuts off and you stop denominating things in dollars, right? It just makes no sense anymore. Like, does anyone care what the exchange rate of the euro is to Deutschmark? Not really. So you just go to sats at some point. I would say probably in the million range, it just starts to drop off and people just start using sats. And then we just have deflation from that point.
Wow. So wait. So you think that we're going to be denominating things in Satoshis within the $1 million range?
I would say so.
Wow. I actually hadn't thought of it that way. I thought it would take a lot longer. I thought it would take until like 10 million, 20 million, 50 million, 100 million. I thought it would take longer, like, but at the point where, I mean, I thought it would happen slowly, but that actually makes sense because at that point, so many people will have owned Bitcoin. The people who own Bitcoin, they're going to want to spend it. So they're going to be willing to give away their Bitcoin for goods and services, which makes complete sense. I was thinking of another, just a really important milestone, I guess. I think you're going to be able to buy a house for 0.1 Bitcoin, 0.01 Bitcoin. Eventually, that'll keep dropping. What are your thoughts on that?
Probably. There's a lot of repricing that has to be done.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it happens, but generally these things happen very quickly. The expectation, I think, of a lot of people, including Bitcoiners and some Bitcoin bulls, is that it's going to happen over like a 20, 30-year period. But if you look at the collapse of currencies, they happen very rapidly. And it's typically very chaotic. So we'll see how it goes. But this is sort of why I think it's important that we do outreach and we try to get parallel systems into place.
As the financial stage assumes the aura of an enthralling theater, Maw's forecasts invite investors to carefully weigh the potential of Bitcoin and its allied players. With historical precedents of rapid ascensions and tactical adaptability in its repertoire, Bitcoin's future, spurred by these predictions, forms an enticing narrative for bold investors. But what do you think? Share your thoughts. And finally, if you would like to know more about cryptocurrencies or specifically Bitcoin, go ahead and click on the next video on your screen. See you there.